Listen, I stand before you today as many things. I'm a father. I'm a son. I'm a husband. 23 years to my wife, Jeannie, who, y'all, there's no way that I can tell you how great she's been. I'm a Christian. I'm a small business person. And I'm a very, very proud American. Now, I'm here to tell y'all right now, look, back home in eastern Oklahoma, by the way, I am from Hugo, Choctaw County, southeast Oklahoma, America. That is God's country, friends. I'm here to tell you right now, the people are terrific. The land is great. We have water, we have hunting, and we are loaded with conservatives. Problem is that we're outnumbered on the registration forms about 4-1. But District 2, Oklahoma, quantitatively measured by several elections, is the third most conservative district in the nation. Our country chose to give us freedom to the people because it is that freedom which we are endowed with from our Creator. The founders lined it out in a constitution that focused not on limitation, but on opportunity. Not on infringement, but free exercise. Not bondage, but personal responsibility. To an open door, to ingenuity and success. The founding principles, these founding principles birthed, molded, and defined the American character. Even at the beginning of our country, our great founders realized the threat of what could happen if these constitutionally guaranteed rights were chipped away. In 1788, at the Virginia Convention, James Madison told the audience there, "Since the general civilization of mankind, I believe that there are more instances of abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachment of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." Unfortunately, his warning is shown now to be prophetic. Many American citizens and folks from around the globe, some people call them scholars, some people, just ordinary citizens, they've often contemplated in awe the how and the why as to the sage and prescient words of our founders, and why they reverberate full of truthfulness to this day. The answer is simple. The role of liberty in this American experiment in self-governance was the cornerstone upon which all else could flourish and survive. The notion of liberty to our founders was their lives, consuming every thought, every action, every reaction. Jefferson said, "I predict happiness for Americans if they can prevent government from wasting the labor of the people under the pretense of taking care of them." I, for one, and I believe for all of you here present, I will not stand by and I will not be responsible for allowing the demise of liberty and its offspring, our great American character. In the last 100 years, people who term themselves as progressives have entered our schools, sought to redefine that precious document of guaranteed freedom, the Constitution, through the courts and now through a perverted legislative process. They have worked tirelessly to make our nation forget the exceptionalism that we once were proud to know our nation to have achieved. Over the years, this chipping away has led to a president that announces to the world, we are no longer a Christian nation. No, we're just one inhabitant of a world community. Nothing special. And who hamstrings the limits and the rights of liberties that every generation has come before us, sacrificed their lives and their fortunes to hand down as the most precious treasure they could bequeath to their children. Freedom. And at Congress, the takeover by the central planning collectivist ideologues has enabled this almost unchecked stripping away of our nation's foundation, this shredding of the fabric of American society, and the attempt to alter through perversion our American character. Now I'm going to go off a little bit here. I'm going to tell a little story that just absolutely, my children kind of, it embarrasses them a little bit. But several years ago, when my youngest son, Jared, who's now 8, he would play with a toy. And generally speaking, most toys nowadays have batteries to them of some sort. Makes noise and makes it go and move around. And he didn't quite understand when the batteries ran down on this toy, it wouldn't work right. And he'd say, oh man, this thing's busted, and he'd throw it away. And Colin, the oldest one, would say, Jared, it's not busted, you just need new batteries. Okay, well, the next toy would come up, run out of batteries. Jared, this thing's busted. It needs new batteries, Colin would say, that's all. Well, sometimes, this went on many, many times, and it really kind of got old, but sometimes when you transfer the mundane into the absurd, you get a little bit of humor. And one time, Colin and I, we were out in the shop, we were rotating the tires on a couple of vehicles, and he had the four-way, and I got, the old man here got to use the air impact wrench, and he had never used a four-way, and he was busting knuckles, and I'm here to tell you it was just stripping lug nuts and everything else. And he kind of stepped back, and he had that four-way, and he goes, man, this thing's busted, it needs new batteries. And I'm here to tell y'all today, and it's not that funny, but I tell that story for a reason. American governance is busted, and it needs new batteries. Yeah. We have got to replace the things that make this government supposedly work. It is blind because it sees this movement as fringe. It doesn't want to recognize what is directly in front of its face. Does anybody disagree with that? No. By the way, did I tell y'all that in eastern Oklahoma I'm known as the firebrand Republican? I haven't got into that here yet really tonight. That's something that I'll have to deal with. On the left, I'm known as that idiotic imbecile. They're going to have to deal with that. We can no longer we cannot allow 2010 to go by without getting rid of this central planning collectivist ideology that is so pervasive in our American government that cannot be allowed to stand. They expect we the people to commit personal freedom and American sovereignty suicide, to simply hang ourselves via acquiescence and apathy. That's their mindset. But that will not be allowed to occur because we still have a spark of true patriotism that runs through our veins. Those who recognize our country's foundation, and in many of us, that spark has ignited a flame. And that flame was fanned by passion and love for country and for precious liberty. You and I share a belief that grows every day in our hearts, that we can and will prevail in this battle for the heart and soul of our great nation. We will not surrender. There are still those who do know and believe how exceptional our country is. We need to join together. This Liberty Fest recognized that not everyone here was going to agree on every single thing all of the time. No matter who you are, what you are, you should agree that liberty is something that we can all agree on. Join together, throw out this legislature that we have that is not attentive, and bring together something that resembles adherence and support to the U.S. Constitution. I know I went over. I appreciate y'all. Thanks a lot. We got some bands.